When you're too lazy to properly animate a face, so you try to cheap out. I am honestly surprised that I am, coming into this anime review for Tokyo Ghoul Episode 4, and I'm actually kinda happy with this episode. Now, there was some problems, but for the most part, this episode, this was the best episode yet in terms of adaptation. Like, following the manga, this episode did a fantastic job. There was some key scenes cut, but like I said, it's nothing compared to the previous episodes. The first 3 episodes, it's nothing. This is a pretty good episode. Now, there is some things lacking, which I will get into, but there is one thing that I need to quickly get into first. This episode is going to be extremely confusing for a lot of anime-onlys. Now, for some reason, if you're an anime-only still, and you're watching this, you're probably not going to understand a lot of things going on in this episode, or certain characters. Like, you're not going to recognize characters or really understand what their importance is. For instance, Naki in this episode, to the relationship with Naki and Akira, to, the stuff with going on with, Kano, that was talking to Eto in this episode, and then the stuff with, Pineapple-chan and all that. I mean, there's characters here and there throughout this episode that many anime-onlys, they could potentially guess, but they have no idea what led them to be to this point or why they're doing this or so and so throughout this episode. And so this is the first true signs that anime-onlys, this is definitely going to start getting even more confusing from here on. Because there was a lot of times when the manga was actually coming out, I remember many actually saying there's just too many characters, there's too many things going on, and people who didn't really understand what was going on because there was just so many little events that were tied into like little minor events throughout Part 1 TG. And so this is when it really started to show that you needed to pay attention to Part 1 Tokyo Ghoul to understand what was really going on here, to get the full context. And since anime-onlys, if you watch Season 1 and Season 2, especially Season 2, which technically didn't even really follow the manga, then you're missing a big chunk of this series. So, yeah, I see many people saying that they're very confused about this episode just because of all the little crucial details that was not established in the anime because of Route A. But okay, so to start off, this episode actually did something pretty good. Like, it expanded upon the manga content. Yeah, I'm actually complimenting Studio Clown for a quick second. The scene with the clowns when they were being introduced in this episode, and you see how they were dancing on stage, playing the fool and all of that in front of everybody, they were juggling eyeballs and stuff. That scene was in the manga, but it was very quick. There was like only a couple of panels and stuff, and it wasn't really showcased that much. It was very quick, like only a page. And in this episode, it was obviously expanded. There was a lot more scenes with it. They did more with it, more art and animation with it. And so I am surprised that Studio Clown went that far to kind of do that introduction to the auction arc and all that. So I will give credit where credit is due. They expanded upon a very interesting part, a messed up part of the series, seeing how the clowns are just on stage and how messed up Ghoul Society is, or the auction in general, because of how they were just performing, making themselves look like fools, while just juggling eyeballs and stuff. This entire episode was perfectly adapting chapters 17 through 21, if I am correct, or partially of 21, and it definitely slowed down a bit. There wasn't as many chapters used in this episode compared to the previous episodes. There was like 5 or so chapters used instead of 6 normally, so they did hit the brakes a little bit with this new episode. And I guess it makes sense because, majority of this entire part of the manga is action. As I've already stated many times, Studio Clown is more focused on the action than anything else. They rather get to that action scenes instead of actually properly adapting and establishing characters' emotions, their characterization, and all of that. So, I guess, for this to be the best adapted episode yet, it makes sense since majority of it was just action. Now, speaking of the action, this is where the problems really start to hit for many that probably watched this episode. The art looked kind of good, but the animation was very lacking with this episode. And there was many scenes throughout this episode that was just straight up still frames panning for like 5 seconds, like in the middle of the fights. When you saw Suzuya, fighting and all of that, you saw him fighting, Ayato, you see how there's still frames in it. And then you saw other fights going on, there's just still frames here and there, a lot of focus of just the camera moving on just one image and all that. And I'm just like, are you serious right now? Like, this isn't really good looking animation at all. I mean, art looks incredible with this episode. I mean, there was some derps here and there, but overall, the art looked really good. I'm very impressed with how good the art looked. But in terms of animation, it extremely was lacking. Like, it was lacking a whole lot throughout the entirety of the episode, which kind of dumbfounds me, because it's been very apparent that Studio Clown has been wanting to get to these action scenes as quickly as possible. They've been going through that manga content considerably quick, and now when they finally get to the action scenes, they don't even focus on them or try to properly animate them. They just put still frames one after another. It's more like, you know, seeing the manga panels colored, and then it cuts to the next manga panel. That's pretty much what it was. I guess is not necessarily bad thing, but there was just no in-between to have, like, the cuts between that made it flow better, and so it just made for a very jarring episode. A lot of the fights felt very stiff while watching it, but also there was a lot of little core elements that was removed because of the animation and sometimes the art with this episode, like the tension. One key scene that I was really upset with to see removed from this episode was this, seeing Pineapple-chan and all that, seeing him introduced, and his face was completely shaded out in the anime. It was completely blackened out. You can see it on the screen here. It's completely shaded out. It looks creepy, yes. I like the artwork. It looks nice. But when you compare it to the manga, which I'll have on screen now, you see the big difference with those two scenes. The manga, the artwork to the facial expression, all of that, it's extremely jarring and it's scary. It really lets you know that this dude is deranged, like he's messed up. And so when you see the anime equivalent, you're like, it looks good, but it's nothing compared to the manga. It looks really poor, and honestly, I think they were probably just lazy and they didn't really want to animate the face or just, you know, draw the face in general. They didn't want to do that at all, because, I mean, some parts of this episode, it did look good. So, I guess they just got lazy and they're like, hey, let's just shadow that face, let's not show the face and all that. So, I mean, it's not like they were trying to hide his face in the first place, because even though we know it's Takizawa Sato and all that, I mean, they still showed his face at the end of the episode when he was raising up, you know, the head like a pineapple. So, yeah, that's actually a scene to get into. So there was a lot of censorship with this, like this right here, with Takizawa holding up the head. Now, I'm not blaming Clown. I've already said this a couple times while reviewing this series, Tokyo Ghoul. I'm not blaming them for the censorship. It's Japan. They have to do this. Okay, it's understandable. But the thing is that this is a very iconic moment. It removed a lot of tension from the episode, because in the manga, when you saw this man just holding up a head and all that, and he's like, it's like a freshly picked pineapple. It's just like, what the hell? Like, it spawned so many memes. Like, there were so many memes that spawned from that alone when this man did that. Many were just calling him Pineapple. That was his nickname for a very long time. And then people went as far as to actually change the man's head into a pineapple that he was holding. So, I mean, there was a lot of memes that was born from this one scene. And they kind of botched it a little bit, not showing that. Which, like I said, not blaming them, because they have to censor stuff. I mean, they can't just show, like, a severed head just held up like that. I understand that, but still, the thing is that it removed a lot from that scene, and I was a little bit upset with it. Now, another scene that was kind of dragged down thanks to the animation and art was the scene with Suzuya. Suzuya, his introduction, when he came out and all that, he was about to be auctioned off, he came out of nowhere, and you just see the blades coming out of his leg and all that. It looks beautiful in the manga, and then when you compare it to the anime, it's very lacking. You just see that there's a lot of details that are missing from the anime compared to the manga, and I'm like, yo, come on, now, I mean, it looks good if I didn't know about the manga equivalent, but when you really compare it side by side, you're like, yeah, I know which one's better. And then on top of that, with it pretty much being still frames in the entirety of the scene. Okay, so another one was the Mutsuki stuff. So Mutsuki, the scene to where Uta came in and was like, nobody's coming. The plan has failed. No help will arrive and all that. When he gets onto her shoulder and says that, like he whispers to her, we weren't actually supposed to hear the dialogue there. It was supposed to be stated when she was locked in the closet hiding. She was supposed to remember what Uta said there, and then, you know, we found out what he truly said to her. It made us question a lot about his character. How does he know this information? We were questioning alongside of Mutsuki in that moment. But they decided to reveal his dialogue right then and there, which automatically removed a lot of tension from that scene. But number two, it also, the way the scene was done compared to the manga, just the way the camera was done wasn't effective at all. Like, you see the man walk up behind Mutsuki and then put his hand on her shoulder, and then you see her shocked face and her worried look on her face, and it's just like, yo, like, what? So they didn't show that properly, which cut out a lot of the tension in that moment, which the anime is definitely lacking now because of that. Now, speaking of Mutsuki, since we're on the topic, there was some things removed from her in this episode. Actually, quite a bit was removed from Mutsuki throughout this episode. Number one, Mutsuki's inner thoughts. When she was being auctioned off and all that, people were just, trying to sell her and stuff. We get to see a little bit of worry going on and all that from her face, but a lot of it was removed. Like, the context, what she was thinking in that moment. She was begging for Suzuya to help her out. She thought she was gonna die. She's freaking out. We see a big, inner monologue, just her talking to herself inside of her mind, and this was completely cut from this episode, which just showed how scared she really was. And it went with the fact before the operation began, you had the investigators like, Heise Sasuke or Kaneki, they were talking about how Toru, Mutsuki is probably very scared, probably peeing his pants because of the entire situation, which that is technically what was going on. He was very scared. So, yeah, that's a little bit upsetting that was removed because it added, once again, more tension to the scene, but they're not really trying to add that, obviously. Then, more stuff that was removed from Mutsuki, which should have been added in the last episode, but I didn't want to talk about it because it could have potentially been added at the beginning of this episode, but it's clear as day that it's not going to be added. So, Mutsuki was actually supposed to get training by Suzuya. Suzuya was supposed to train Mutsuki, learning how to handle a knife and all that. Like, you had to where Suzuya was flipping knives and stuff, and Mutsuki was supposed to catch on of how to use knives like this, and it would allow Mutsuki to be able to defend herself in the future. And we just had this big bonding moment between these two characters, and also Mutsuki was supposed to talk to Suzuya about her, like, her struggles, her fear, how she's scared, and how she's scared that she might end up like, how Heise Sasuke was when he started to go mad a couple episodes ago with, Orochi Serpent. So, I mean, that entire scene was completely removed. And like I said, I was hoping that was going to get added at the beginning of this episode, but that did not happen. So that's why I'm talking about it now. So yeah, Mutsuki's stuff once again removed. So we have the entire stuff with her scars on her body removed. We have the stuff with the reveal of her gender removed. We have her inner psyche, it's been removed. It's just like she's a very shallow character right now. They're really not trying to properly show Mutsuki's character at all, and she is very, very important for future events of this series, and they are really undermining her character a lot. And that's not even getting into, Torso. As I've been talking about Torso, him having an attachment to Mutsuki makes no sense at all. Like, no sense. Supposed to be attached because of the scars, nothing else. And thanks to Mutsuki not showing those scars in the anime, it makes no sense why he's attached to or drawn to her. He just seems like a psychopath. That's all he looks like at this moment. So, yeah, once again, undermining his character quite a bit. Now, speaking of scenes that were also removed, there was scenes where Matsuri was supposed to talk about the investigation, or this entire operation, what's going on. He was supposed to give a little bit more details, the rundown of, like, what each group is trying to do while they're going into, the auction and all that. And we also had a little bit more of the prep-up time for, Heise's squad. He was talking to them, letting them know what to expect, or, run away if you have to. And we even get the inner psyche of the individuals that are underneath, Kaneki. We get, Shirazu and how he wants Mutsuki to be safe. We have Uri being very crusty, wanting his promotion and all that. And then we have, Psycho. She's like, be safe and all that, Mutsi and all that, but she's like, I'm kind of useless. So we get to see the inner psyche of these three characters, what their priorities are, and what they really want. And as you can see, Uri, he's just a very nasty person, and he doesn't really care about the life of his comrades at all. He just wants to get there first so he can get his promotion, which was a parallel to what Matsuri was doing in the episode, or in the chapter. Matsuri is showing that he doesn't care about civilian lives at all. He's more concerned about the objective, the primary objective of taking down Big Madam, and that was pretty much it. He didn't care about anything else, and he wanted his promotion, and so that right there was removed from this episode, the parallels to that, to show how Uri and Matsuri are very similar. So yeah, once again, another scene removed. So they're now starting to undermine Uri's character quite a bit too. So, moving on to the next stuff with art. Now, another scene that was kind of removed with this episode was, seeing Kane actually chase after Mutsuki. You know how Kane basically just pops up out of nowhere and, starts attacking Mutsuki? Well, we were supposed to see a scene where Kane was like, oh, whoa, whoa, like, Mutsuki's running, there's chaos right now, I can most likely go after the one-eyed ghoul, capture her and all that for, Shu. And that's kind of cut in this episode. So, it's kind of like there's just a big jump cut with that content, and it wasn't properly established at all. Now, speaking of artwork as well, continuing on with the trend I'm doing in this video, Ayato's Kagane, personally, I don't think it looked that good in the anime. It looked very weird compared to the manga equivalent. I don't know, just the way the manga looks, it looked very nice. It flowed better. But in the anime, it just looks very weird. So, yeah. Also, some destruction and all that throughout the episode was kind of removed, and it was in the manga. So, yeah, there's more stuff that was removed. It has its problems. It's definitely, once again, a step forward for a better Tokyo Ghoul Re, but it's still lacking a lot of things, the main elements that make Tokyo Ghoul what it is, because once again, Studio Clown has missed the point of what the series is about. It's not just the fact that they cut scenes that are just slow-paced or just dialogue between the characters, but now they're really starting to show that they don't even know how to properly do fight scenes, especially with emotions, because it's not always about characters punching the crap out of each other, killing each other. There's more meaning to that. When the characters are going at each other, there's a lot of meaning. But they're cutting out the exchanges or the tension behind it or the reason behind it, and nobody's really going to comprehend that at all. For instance, the whole Naki stuff with Akira, that's supposed to have a lot of build-up thanks to Part 1 TG. And then the stuff with Hinami realizing who Akira was, is like spine user and all that, that was supposed to be set up because of what, Akira's father did to Hinami's family. And then we have a bunch of other stuff that was, set like Kano and all that. Many are not going to understand Kano because his entire raid on Kano's lab in Part 1 was completely cut from the anime. So nobody's really going to understand that at all, the connection that Kano has with Ogiri Tree and everything else with Sato and stuff. So there you go. And then nobody's probably going to understand too, if you're an anime only, why Suzuya is missing a leg. Because if I'm correct, in the anime, Rude, Suzuya had a broken leg, and as you know, a broken leg shouldn't usually cost you your entire leg, so it makes no sense why he lost his leg, and now he has a leg back. So those people that are saying, oh, Rude exists, it's, still canon and all that, no, you're wrong there. You're wrong. So, I mean, yeah, that's pretty much it when it comes to this episode. It's, great episode depending on how you view it, but if you're looking for stellar art and animation, then it's obviously going to be lacking. But adaptation-wise, it's definitely a step up. So I want to end it there. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like. And I know for a fact many are probably not going to like this video for my honest opinion of me disliking the anime, because many people don't like to hear, an opposite opinion of them. So if I upset you, leave a dislike as well. I understand completely. So with that, Chibi out.